Hello everybody, it's Kirsty. Instead of doing Peter Falconio, I am going to look at Madeleine McCann because now the new suspect, Christian Breukner, has also apparently, they suspect him of abducting another little German girl. So I thought it would be probably the best thing to do, start on this case. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the 3rd of May 2007 at 9:10 p.m. Actually, sorry, 8:30, 9:10 and then 10 p.m. 8:30 was when she was seen fast asleep in bed in the apartment in Portugal. She was also seen at 9:10 p.m. and then by 10 p.m. she was gone. So we're going to have a look at 3 charts. Now, her parents, Gerry and Kate McCann, were at dinner about 55 metres or 180 feet away from Madeleine at the time. So it's more than likely, well, the story is that somebody came in and took her while she was asleep. So we're going to have a look at those 2 charts. We're going to have a look at Christian Breukner and see if he fits. We will see if this person is possibly the person that did it. And if not, we can get an idea of perhaps exactly what did happen. Okay, let's have a look. Here we have all 3 charts. 8:30, 9:10, 10 p.m. This is the exact place where she went missing, and these are the charts. So that's that one, this one, and then the final one. Now the first thing I want to show, as always, because it's always there, at 8:30 the moon is at 28 degrees of Scorpio. I bet you know where I'm going with this. At 9:10 it was 28 degrees 40 of Scorpio. Where do you think it was at 10 p.m? 29 degrees of Scorpio. So as always, look at this, the moon. As always, when we look at children missing, the moon is imperative, and the moon has shown us exactly what's happened here. It shows me that she's not alive. That's the very, very first thing. Even just from seeing that moon is enough to tell me that. I've seen enough of these repetitively over and over and over to know that it's not a good sign when a child goes missing, when the sun goes from 27, 28 to 29. So that's the first thing. But let's have a look at them up close. So this is 8:30 when Kate McCann went in to check on her. So the chart, what we need to look at is, did she go in and check on her? That's all we can really glean from this point in time. In this instance, I'm going to use Kate as the ascendant because she's walking into the apartment. She sees the moon, which is co-ruling the victim, Madeleine. She sees Madeleine in the apartment. That's the first house. She's right where she should be. And not only that, the 4th house cusp, which is the mother of a little tiny child, and also the womb and the tomb and the end of the matter, but it's family and mother and all of those things. With Neptune conjunct, see the IC is at 22 degrees and Neptune is at 21 degrees conjunct that. That shows that she is asleep in that apartment, in the family home at that time, which is the apartment. So she's walked in the door, seen Madeline in the apartment, and she's asleep. At this point in time, we know 100% there's no perpetrator. And see, there's nothing in this 7th house. It's ruled by Taurus. So if there was a perpetrator hiding in the room, then Taurus's ruler is Venus, which is in Gemini and in the 8th house of death. Let's just remember that this 7th house has nothing in it but is ruled by Taurus. We can't forget that, which is Venus. This is 9:10 p.m. So I think, now please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's a possibility that Kate McCann stayed there from 8:30 till 9:10, unless Gerry came back at 9:10. Nonetheless, the very last time the police said Madeline was seen is 9:10. So this chart is getting closer to what's going on. Now we have Scorpio rising. Now this chart here as well is purely about Madeleine McCann. At 9:10 she was last seen, so what's going to happen coming up to 10 o'clock? So she is Scorpio, the victim on the ascendant, which means that she's represented by Mars there at 21 degrees of Pisces. Okay, so she's in the 4th house. This house here is the 4th, and that represents her being in the apartment at the time. So she's in the apartment, but interesting, Neptune has moved away from this sleeping area into the 3rd house here, which is representative of communication and talking and coming out of sleep. So I have to wonder whether she was spoken to or something at 9:10, or whether there was verbal confirmation that she was okay, because Neptune's moving away into that 3rd house. The moon though is closer to the ascendant, so it's like, yes, she's right there. She's right in the apartment. She's Mars and the moon, and they're actually making an aspect to each other. 30, 60, 90, 120, just count it with you, is a trine. So they are trining each other. So she's happily asleep, I believe, at this point in time, in her bed at 9:10. Over here we still have no activity in the area of the suspect, just a rulership of Venus, which is edging towards this 7th house here. Okay, so now we need to look at 10 p.m. because by this time she's gone. Something has happened to her. So from the movement of this chart to the next one, we're going to see some different things, and then we'll really go over it. We have 10 o'clock. Now things have changed. The moon has gone to 29 degrees of Scorpio, like I said. Now 29 degrees of Scorpio is not a good position for the moon at all. It is very much like, it's very representative of a sexual predator in this instance. Please, if you've got a Scorpio moon at 29 degrees, I'm not saying you're a sexual predator. It is not like that. This event chart shows us that there is a sexual predator. So, or she was taken by a sexual predator, because this is her. Now, she's represented by the 1st house, as always, and this time that's in Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. So right there in the 1st house. So it's interesting. Now that tells me something straight away, and that is that well, first of all, the moon, which is the co-ruler of Madeline, is hidden in the 12th house. So she's gone and hidden. She's away, out of sight at this point. Jupiter, being the ruler of Madeline, being in the first house, I don't think she's that far away at 10 o'clock. It feels like the person or persons is still around this area. Now, Jupiter in Sagittarius especially can represent long distances and foreign lands and etc., etc. So this is almost like it's telling me a distance from 1 to 18. So between 10 past 9 and 10 p.m, it's like this person managed to get like 18 miles away or something. So they're going away, but they're still, they would have been catchable if they'd have been able to close off borders and stuff like that. But I don't know how Portugal works, Anyway, so that's what that Jupiter's just throwing out to me. The end of the matter is here at 16 degrees of Pisces. That's not good, and that actually makes me feel that perhaps the end result was her in water, and that she was put in water ultimately. And with the moon being at 29 degrees of Scorpio, which is also a water sign, that's not good either. That's also a water. Now, the 4th house, so the apartment that we were looking at before, is still here. And instead of Neptune, so instead of her being sleeping, now we have Uranus conjunct the 4th house. So something very unexpected happened. It's only 1 degree away, between 16 and 17. And when they went into that room, the parents would have been absolutely mortified and shocked that she wasn't there, and that is shown by Uranus. The one thing that I'm not seeing here at the moment is people that were there previously doing something to her. So I can't see the parents being involved at this point, and I have to touch on that because they have been, they've been taken out. They've copped a lot of shit through the years because nobody really knows, did they do it? Okay, moving on. So we can look at the suspect now, because there's a suspect been and gone. The suspect has now moved, which is this line here. Sorry about that. It's in Gemini, 1 degree of Gemini. Now, if you've watched all my videos, you'll know that often the rule of thumb is that when Gemini is on the 7th house, 2 people either were involved or know about this. Now, I'll just get rid of that. The ruler of Gemini, so the perpetrator, is Mercury right here. Now Mercury is at 13 degrees and the Sun is at 13 degrees. In Taurus this is. So Mercury at 13 degrees of Taurus actually shows me that this person may have had diseases of the throat or problems of the throat. And this person will go into ruin and disgrace. So I don't know anything about this suspect, but I'm just saying what happens when we see that. But okay, so Mercury. Now Mercury, if it doesn't represent 2 people and we have to do a description, it represents a young man. Now, interestingly, if this suspect, Christian Breukner, did do it, he had just turned 30 and he'd just had his Saturn return, which is a little bit old for Mercury to be the suspect. But we're going to have a look at him as well, because you have to see what you're looking at too. So we're looking for a Gemini type of person with a Gemini type of physique and Gemini type of personality and characteristics. Not only that, now Venus has moved into the 7th house in Gemini. So it's almost as if a woman enters at some point, and you'll notice here that it's making an aspect to this Jupiter that I said when he went a far distance. If you'll notice, there's actually a big square that goes there down here to Mars, which was initially the ruler of Madeline. So it's not good seeing Venus squaring Mars. That is sexual tension, something to do with sex. Jupiter adds to the thrill of it as well. Jupiter's not always lucky. We know that when we're looking at criminal charts. So this is pointing to the suspect wanting to have a sex predator, wanting to take her for his own needs. Now it's in the ruler of Mercury is in the 6th house of health and routine and stuff like that. You know, when you see something like this in the 6th house, it does show, like I've said many times before, that it's possible that he was watching her previously. The sun's shining on him really bright here, so it's like shining a light on this person, watching her. So now that we know Mercury is the ruler of the perpetrator, this makes it very interesting because he is right underneath at 13 degrees 45, that's Mercury. The DC is 13 degrees 47. It is exactly on the DC. I think in hindsight, the person that took her was there at 9:10. I believe he was hiding either very close to the apartment or in the apartment. So that's really interesting, going all the way back to this 9:10. There we go. Mercury is right there in that position of hiding, basically, ready to strike, ready to jump out and act in a Venusian way. Venus act in a sexual deviant way with all the other things I explained. Especially seeing here as well, I forgot to mention this, Pluto opposing Venus. Venus is at 24 degrees Gemini and Pluto is at 28 degrees of Sagittarius. So that's not a good sign either. Venus in the 8th house of death, Pluto in the 2nd house of using somebody and taking away their self-worth. It's a terrible chart to look at. Anyway, I wanted to just show you that one in hindsight with the Mercury here hidden just under the DC. I do believe this person was watching her. So it feels as though somebody has seen this person. Now, I've seen the sketch of when apparently somebody said they saw him. I have to say it doesn't look anything like this new guy, but we'll talk about that after. Saturn. Saturn is the deceased body. It's always the deceased body in every one of these cases. We know she's deceased. I think it wouldn't have taken very long. She would have been deceased within 3 hours maximum. I wouldn't be surprised if it was when we see 1 degree 48 on the ascendant. It can show time as well as mileage. It's like perhaps she was alive for nearly 2 hours. So her body, I believe, is far away. It's in the 9th house. This is the 9th house here. It's in Leo. So it's out in the open. It's not hidden deep down in a cave or in a well or anything like that. Out in the open, but very far away. This the person that did this, and as you'll notice here, there's a red line there. It's wide, but there's a square between the perpetrator and her body, so he has taken her far away. Now, not only that, this Jupiter here that I noticed at the start is at 18 degrees. So's Saturn. They are trining each other. So this shows me that Madeline, because this is her, was taken very easily away to this place where she was essentially killed. So it's almost as if he'd been watching her, then he quickly took her, hung around a little while, then jumped in a car, bolted. It seems to me as though he met up with a woman. I could be wrong. It could be a feminine male, could be a sister or a relative or something, and then fled far, far away. But like I said before, the end of the matter shows Pisces, which is water. So I personally feel, and there's an aspect between Jupiter and its ruler Pisces and the IC as well. So you can see there's Madeline, very much a part of this end of the matter. I think she would have been suddenly thrown into water on the way to where they were going, but where she was is far away as well. I unfortunately don't think she will ever be found. Even if this guy is the killer, I don't think he's going to give it up. So I don't think she'll be found, sadly. When we have Gemini on the 7th house, so here, the DC, or the 7th house cusp, when we want a description of a person, Gemini is usually a thinner, sort of delicate, well-composed and well-set body type, good colour, very bright eyes usually, with good sight, piercing eyes quite often, long arms, long hands and fingers, witty, fluent on the tongue, and just a good-looking young man quite often. It shows somebody that has a youthful appearance, intelligent, doesn't show intelligence, but they're intelligent and, like I said, quick-witted, and they can be chameleons and they can adjust to all different situations. Now, having a look at this guy, he fits the profile down to the ground. Gerry or Kate McCann don't fit the profile, except for the fact that there's two of them and there's some type of involvement with the female along the line. So, you know, like I've said, I've seen many of these. I don't like that the moon is at 29 Scorpio. That sort of puts the mum in a bad light, and I think what it does, it just tends to show sometimes that maybe that the mum looks like she's done something, because the same with Letitia Stout, there's that real strong scorpionic look where it's like, no, she looks like she's done something wrong, but I think it might just be that she's got a face like that. I don't know. But to me, it's definitely either two people and two younger people, a male. What's interesting, I'll just change colours here and get the red. Now, So this is the suspect around here. Mercury, the sun's very tightly conjunct, so this really indicates a male. Anyway, so we look at the red lines, which are squares to it, and when you have a look here, we can see there's one going from Saturn to Chiron and Neptune in the 3rd house. That's actually delusional thinking as well. Somebody that just does not think right, and a sexual predator, paedophile, doesn't think right. They are making a square to the suspect. See this triangle here, so it's all pointing to the suspect. So it's interesting because not only is Saturn the physical body of a victim, Saturn is actually very representative of this Christian Breukner, because he'd just gone through his Saturn return at the time. And if that's the case, we see this Chiron here, which is like the wounded healer, and Neptune, which is delusional and all the things I've talked about with Neptune, pointing to this Sun and Mercury, which are like on fire in the 6th house. It shows me that there's real mental problems here, because it's the 3rd house, that's the logical mind, the 9th house, the abstract or higher mind, and the 6th house, which is halfway between the 3rd and the 9th. If you know what I mean. It's all about the mind. So this, again, because it's Mercury, shows me that there's an intelligent person. I mean, he's gotten away with this. So yeah, now 2nd house is kidnapping for the reason of sex trafficking, and or taking them far away to have sex and to share them. It's still sex trafficking, so that could be the 2 people. Now Capricorn, Saturn. Okay, Venus is the natural ruler of the 2nd house. So Venus being in the 7th house of the perpetrator could indicate that this person was not only sexually disgusting, but also taking her to be trafficked. So imagine, it's almost like this: if you're in a car, he's got her, he's driving away, he's giving her to somebody else, passing her over, and it sort of moves around like that until she's deceased. So what I can say is, I personally don't believe that it was her mum and dad. I'd be very surprised if it was. I mean, it, like I said, it shows us 2 people in the chart, but to me it also shows a sexual deviant, and the description of this 7th house is very, very accurate to Christian Breukner. Okay, I hope that helps everybody, and remember that 29-degree moon, if you're learning, keep an eye out for that, especially if you are looking at the charts of missing children. Okay everyone, take care, and I'll be up next with a huge one on everything. So, I'm not sure what it is yet. I'll figure it out. Bye.